Well, hello. It's May 1, the first day of May. Can you imagine? April, May. Everyone should have filed their tax returns or properly extended them. And the big news of the day, Steve Doocy has stepped off the Kirby couch, and he'll be working 3 days a week. I guess semi-retiring in Florida somewhere. I think it's over here on the East Coast. But I actually don't know that. I think Sean Hannity is in Manalapan, which is an area immediately south of the island of Palm Beach and the former C.W. Post Estate, now known as, always known as Mar-a-Lago. I think they actually named it. So the White House briefings, which is, this is delayed, seems to be popping up first thing in the morning. Maybe that's the new gig time, which actually makes sense for the press secretary, to discuss everything, the news cycle that happened yesterday, so they can spend, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night preparing what they're going to talk about the next morning. And they have a chance to interface with administration officials, because during the day it's, I'm sure total chaos. Everyone running around, dealing with all the world events. It's a 20-hour day at the White House, particularly with Trump. Let's say a 19-hour day, 18-hour day. Yeah, definitely an 18-hour day. Because, you're dealing with world time, not just, Eastern Standard Time or Daylight Time and Pacific Time and Mountain Time and Central Time. You got Japanese time, Korean time, Ukrainian time, Moscow time. You're dealing with a world situation. It's got to be, it's working in the presidential administration is certainly not a 9-to-5 situation. That is for certain. And so here's a graphic that we never really discussed, on this little TV show, if you will. You only get to see my hands. Everything else is too, or at best you can see me from a sideways view. There you go. What are you gonna do? But there's the old microphone. The heel air transformer PR40, which picks up every P sound you can think of. I'll go back to my a shared view with my graphics over here. There we go. Whoops. Producers, would you kindly put me on the proper side? You keep on. Swap cameras. There you go. That's the key word. Swap cameras. Now, the problem with this full screen thing. The first 100 days, which was ended yesterday, so it's okay. We're doing it this morning, right? On day one. But anyway, this chart popped out on Tuesday at 11:35 p.m. as I can see on my on the very top. You should be able to see that right below. Oh, it's right here we go, underneath the ticker tape. There it is. See, Tuesday at 11:35 p.m. And here you guys thought I was neatly tucked away in bed at 9:30. No chance. No way, Jose. This guy puts in say 18-hour day. All right, so look what we got here. This is the first 100 days. We've got 132,000, roughly 132,000 and 65,000 of them, can you believe it, are already deported. They're gone. And that's 656.8. You move that decimal place over a couple of points. Deported, 656 a day. That's 3 airplanes. You put 200 of each on an airplane. That's 200. That's 3 jam-packed, airplanes a day. Whoosh, out of here. That's what we need. And there's another 66,000 arrested. And it's some form of, this, just the way this is from a non-lawyer. in my second life, third life, ninth life, I'll come back as a lawyer. But as far as this time on the planet, as a non-lawyer, people that jump the border, they don't enjoy, all the rights of the Bill of Rights, because that's for citizens. If you look at this little doodad right here, I just happen to have a copy of the United States Constitution right here. And, when you read it, and I've read it a couple times, and it defines a lot of stuff, and every time some political figure says, well, according to, Section 3, well, you know what, you can look it up. Because old Charlie Hurt is good enough at Turning Point USA. Organization is good enough to send out a few of these things. And then I went on Amazon.com. Look at this neat little doodad. Now look at. Now this is you want something in your pocket, so you can put it right in your pocket. I used a corner rounder. You see how rounded the corners are? So I can slip that right in my back pocket, and the corners don't get all, still gets worn out, but not quite the same. But I bought 20 of these. Maybe it was 24 of these for $23 shipped. And it's not in. It's the print isn't that small, and including all amendments, every damn thing. Pardon the expression. I'm trying to. Get to the last page. That's significant dates. This includes the Declaration of Independence, written in regular English. Who signed it? State of Massachusetts, the state of Massachusetts, and an index. 42 pages. Oops. 43 pages. Oops. 44 pages, including the index. Not bad. I got a whole stack of them back here. I'll show you. And keep everything from going on. There you go. Cellophane wrapped. Right from Amazon.com. There's the special number. Now you can just... It's easy to search it. And, yeah, it's pretty cool. Oops. Oop, this was put in there upside down. Well, I'm going to take 2 of these out because I'm having dinner tonight with my good friend Bill and Elaine Morris. And every time I go out with somebody, you know what I do? I hand them a copy of the Constitution. Yes, I do. And they'll always remember Jimmy, because he's a turkey that I've always wanted a copy of the United States Constitution in my pocket. And there you go. Now, if I can figure out, I used to have like stickers, business card stickers. You can put that right in the back of this, so that way they can remember they'll remember where they got it from. But in case they drop it on the floor, someone will pick it up and they can see from whom that came. Yeah. Anyway, so 130,000 arrested. We were talking about the Bill of Rights. Yeah, well, you know what? Illegals don't get the Bill of Rights. U.S. citizens get the Bill of Rights. And they get the Bill of Wrongs. When they jump the border, they have committed a felony, I believe. They're felonious. Makes them deportable. And if they want to exercise anything else, they can do it from somewhere else. Now, we admit, the way I understand it, if you want to come in the front door, which means you go to your embassy and say, I want asylum, or any of those kinds of claims, well, you declare that in the embassy of your country. You go into the U.S. Embassy in your country and make those assertions there. And then you can wait for, an asylum, whatever kind of hearings occur, from somewhere else. But you don't get the chance of flopping around all over the United States, enjoying or murdering, or the people that the 12 or 14 million or how many jumped the border. It was thousands, tens of thousands a day, and now it's down to 3? No new laws. No, Congress didn't pass any comprehensive immigration reform because according to the talking heads and all the cabinet members, and all the lawyering up that the administration did while they were in office. This is a nonpartisan conversation, by the way. I'm just talking about the prior administration. Haven't used any names. But the prior administration said, our border is secure. Meanwhile, we see, Peter Ducey is down there, or some of the other Fox News people, and you point over to, you see the border, and there are like thousands and thousands of people pouring in the border. They're taking names and addresses. They're walking in and letting them in. There's no vetting. They're not determining which are bad guys and which are good guys and which country they're wanted for, murder, rape, or whatever, aggravated assault, robbery. No, none of that. Just let them in the door. We'll figure it out. We'll try to find you once you're here. Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, we'll figure it out once you get here. Well, as long as, the current administration, keeps on, locking up, 130,000, every 100 days, that's not a bad start. And remember, that's start to finish 100 days. It took them 2 weeks to find a men's room. Administration comes and goes. Now you got the transition period, so most everybody comes in, with at least that head start, so they can, not get surprised on day one. But it's still tough. Then you have all the cabinet, the people that run the departments. They don't get installed, until, like the first week or two in administration. So the new administration starts on the 20th of January. I think that's in the Constitution. It's not somewhere in January. It's exactly stated. Anyway, so, the 27th they get, so it takes, but by the time the Senate confirms, the nominations of the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, those two people right there, and the Pentagon, all right, Secretary of Defense, those three departments are probably, 75-80% of the entire federal budget. I think the new bill, the Secretary of Defense, it's $1 trillion, to take care of the Secretary of the Defense Department and get all this new technology. And I hope the Iron Dome or the Gold Dome, whatever they want to call the dome, we helped Israel with the Iron Dome, which is basically a battery, an array of batteries of these intercepting missiles. So when the Houthis or the Foodies or whoever, start, or Hamas, Iran sponsors of terror, start lobbing missiles over to Israel, the Iron Dome, then they fire up their missiles. See, you got missiles coming this way and missiles, it's a messy situation. And, so they're all operating at, subsonic speeds, basically. It's kind of like, the 1990s, the year 2000 missile architectures and speeds. This is 2025. And now they're, everyone's announcing missiles that go, 3, 4, 5, 10 times the speed of sound. Well, the speed of sound is, quick. It's, 1,040 miles an hour? Okay, so, or, it's like 700 and, let's just say 760 miles an hour, speed of sound. I got a little mixed up with my 1040. It's like slightly less than 1,100 feet per second. So, my grandfather told me, when you see lightning strike, you count 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1. So if you count 5, 1,000, that lightning hit. It takes, thunder travels at the speed of sound. The lightning travels at the speed of light. So if you count the difference between the two, that's how many feet the lightning struck. So 5 seconds, 5,000 feet. Well, 5,280 feet in a mile. So if you count to 5, that lightning blasted something about a mile away. And if you count to 15, that's 3 miles away. So those people that watch, these SpaceX launches at the Kennedy Space Center, and they see this thing coming off the launch pad. Well, it's like the silent movies. You don't hear anything for a while. You're watching this big, bright, huge, 30-story office building that's 12 feet in diameter, launched from pad 39A. And, they got to count a few seconds before they hear anything. And then when they hear it, it's like a crack of thunder that keeps thundering, because it's a constant, blast of those 9 Merlin engines. Yeah. So I think they've named that the Merlin, launch vehicle. Because you got 9 Merlin engines. Now in the SpaceX vehicle that they're going to be launching, the Mars trip, that is 33. Yeah. You got 3 motors in the middle. It's surrounded by 10 engines, and then surrounded by another 20 engines. So 10, 20, 30, and then 3. 20, then 10, then 3, as you're counting inward. Now those are Raptor engines. And a Raptor engine is like 2 Merlin engines. It's not, I should do the math on that, on the pounds per thrust. A Raptor engine. I just happen to have a copy of one right here. Oh yeah, there it is. That's the newly designed Raptor engine. And I understand there's something not right, and right around in this area right here of that Raptor engine. And so this is like version 3. I have another picture of all 3 of those Raptor engines as they have gone through their, because they keep improving things, You got a building full of engineers on each of these projects, and they, they're constantly making, and then Elon gets involved and he starts waving and hands around, how about this and how about that, and the how abouts, you better focus on where that finger's pointing, because with all those little biological electrons floating around between his ears, there's a lot going on. So you better, if there's 5 engineers following him around, between the 5 of them, they probably remember what he's talking about. Marilyn is meeting with her cardiologist right now. I like to go with her, but she had to card, 9:15 appointment. So you stay home. So here I am. But I'm doing something. And so I sent her all her meds. I sent in her cardiology card. And, so Ordonez knows the meds. I said, make pictures. Bring in paper. Because some of these doctor offices are low-tech. They want to scan stuff in, if you're lucky. That's actually not a fair statement. Dr. Ordonez saved my Fanny. In 1 month, I'm clocking 7 years as a survivor of quadruple bypass surgery. Like survivor of a plane crash. Believe me, bypass surgery is something you want to bypass. Can I bypass that surgery? Ooh. Yeah, actually, I didn't feel a thing. They knock you out. Oh my God, what day is it? And then sometime later in the day, they had me anesthetized for 11 hours. Can you believe it? I went into surgery at like 6:30 in the morning, which means 7:30. You're on the table, flat. I don't like laying flat. I like to have my head raised above my toes. Yeah, I got one of those little triangular things that you put behind your pillow, which has disappeared in the mattress somehow. Between the mattress and the headboard, everything like slid. Where's my triangle? Well, Travis Maryland's already in bed, so I'm not going to be able to ship that mattress very easily without waking anybody up. So anyway, this morning or this afternoon, I'm going to have to figure out how to find my triangle. Yeah, so I just stuffed a bunch of pillows behind my precious noggin, so my nose is above my toes. Yeah, I like looking down on my toes. Yeah, I don't like being straight flat. No way. No. I'm not suitable for carving. Anyway, so I survived. Bypass surgery. The mortality rate, the survival rate is not 100%. As a matter of fact, we had a little debate in the hollowed halls of the Boca Raton Regional Hospital as to how I was going to be treated. Because we had a panel of people, a banana play. One panel, now how do you like this as a patient? just from the patient perspective, okay? I got 3 doctors saying this is what we ought to do. And I got 2 doctors saying, no, you won't survive that. You need to do this. Oh, really? Jeez. Well, I believe the 2. And one of them was Dr. Ordonez. And he says, Jimmy, I've done 5,000 of these angio look around inside your heart thingies, taking pictures and videos and, from inside, some of your arteries, as I float around in there and look around. And we need to I met up with Dr. Brian Bethay. I sat outside his office door in Delray, and I know what that's like because I've been there. Post-surgery, 2 weeks after surgery, go in and see the surgeon. Nice gentleman. I met him, before, at 6:30. The patient is on the bed in Jaimito. June 5th. Okay, 6 years ago. Well, almost 7 years ago. 2000. I guess 18. All right. So I'm laying with my head above my toes, and I got heparin running in my veins. I got nitroglycerin drip going through my arteries, I should say, pumping around in my body. One dilates all the capillaries, and the heparin keeps your, it's an anticoagulant. So I'm anticoagulated and I'm dilated, keep my blood pressure down, got my heart rate down to it was 200 over 100. And I'm sitting on a couch. No. What's wrong with this picture? Yeah, so I had quadruple bypass surgery and survived it, because there are a few that don't. And if I'd have gone one direction, I wouldn't be here almost 7 years ago. But I survived it. Thank you, Dr. Ordonez. Gotta love Dr. Ordonez. When you have a doctor that saves your fanny, and it just, you get lucky. And I got lucky because, what's lucky about having a heart attack? But I didn't have one of those heart attacks where you fall to the floor, you grab your chest and go, "Ah!" It wasn't one of those. I'm sitting on a couch watching the news. It wasn't anything particularly exciting. Brett Baer, watching him, he's going through, and it was, like the first couple minutes of the news, and he's hitting some headlines, and, I don't remember anything blew up on, in the last, in the last week in May. Went to the hospital like May 20-something. I didn't have my surgery until, June 5th. Anyway, so, oh boy. So as it turned out, well, Mr. Wilson, in looking at the blood work, there is an enzyme in your blood that indicates you had a heart attack. I said, well, like saying, "Oh shit, Sherlock." Well, and then Dr. Ordonez comes in. He said, "But you had just a little tiny one." I said, "I know. I didn't come in here, crying and screaming." He said, "Right in the very bottom tip of your heart, you lost a couple of little muscles way down in the very bottom tip, which is not gonna, that's not a problem." He said, "The problem is, two of your bypasses are very traditional. You use a normal size, gauge, whatever, gauge 4, gauge 5, I forget what Brian Bethea said, but there's two of them. They're little tiny ones. The blockage is so severe, that if there's any, corpuscles going through there, it's like one at a time, and that's not the way a heart artery is not supposed to be counting the corpuscles. It's supposed to flow freely. Well, it was not flowing freely. And one team of doctors wanted to put in 2 high-risk stents. High-risk stent. Aha! Hi, almighty? What do you mean by high-risk stent? So they go through all this stuff and up and in and da.
It's 9:45.
And Ordonez says, "No, sirree, Bob. I met with Brian Bethea and I showed him my films and my still images. He showed me Friday afternoon. He says, 'See right here, Jimmy? See these 2 discs I have in my hand? I'm going up to Brian Bethea's office. I'm sitting in his lobby at 10 a.m. because he has an early surgery appointment, and he'll be done so that he can have a 10 a.m. appointment with with me, and we're going to talk about you. And I got the films right here on a CD-ROM, which is like ancient history. But that's what he, I don't know what else doctors walk around with nowadays. With the HIPAA codes, which is a bunch of, this government crap is really, they need to write a letter to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and tell him, hey, relax up on this HIPAA crap, so that these doctors and patients can exchange information without going through, the Hippocratic Oath. I mean, come on, let's keep it simple. And I had to get a certification, that Google Gmail is HIPAA safe. With the super duper security that they have on it, and that that medical records and things can be transferred back and forth through your Gmail accounts. They're just as safe and secure as the hospital records are when doctors look at records back and forth and logging into the hospital systems. Google is just as safe. Use the same 250-bit algorithms that they use to transfer trillions of dollars every day when you do a wire transfer. When banks do wire transfers with each other, it's 256-bit encryption. When the banks and the Federal Reserve transfer trillions of dollars between each other every day at 4:30 in the afternoon, a bank every day, just so going off track here a little bit, but I happen to work in a bank, or worked in the bank, and I'm a little familiar with the wire room. Because of Jill Thagard, she taught me something about the wire room. And when money gets transferred, between the Fed machine in the bank and the Federal Reserve Bank every afternoon at 4:30 in the afternoon, every bank in the United States has to file a completed financial statement, income and expense, profit and loss, every day. A financial statement, a traditional 4-page financial statement, has to go to the Federal Reserve every afternoon. That's why, banks close at 2 or 3, maybe we can sneak that wire out at 3 p.m. Well, the reason why they got those deadlines, because at 4 o'clock, the information is being spooled up to the Treasury Department of the bank, because they got to send it to the Federal Reserve every afternoon. That's no joke. So, anyway, and I was always the one, looking for the last minute wire going out of Royal Trust Bank. And so I got to know, I went down and met Jimmy Johnson and, and Jill Thagard, because the two of them, they ran the Treasury Department of Royal Trust, the main office connected to the Federal Reserve, in the wire room, which is, you got this teletype machine looking thing, which is like a big typewriter, and a big wire coming out of the back of it, and you're in a room that is bird caged with grounded copper mesh, so that no signals can, and you have to have the door shut. There ain't no windows in that room, and you're surrounded left, right, up, down, ceiling and floor. It is encased in 1/4-inch copper mesh that is grounded, so that no RF, radio frequency, can enter that room and maybe interfere or hack the Fed machine. Because that Fed machine, you talk about being under lock and key, there ain't no key. It is all digital, passwords change every 30 seconds. You got to have one of these little doodads in your pocket, which every minute gets refreshed, so you can figure out what the hell your password is to get in the door of the Fed room. Woohoo! Yeah, that's like having the key to the vault. Because every dollar of that bank can get flushed out through the Fed room. Yeah. Forget about the bags of money. Go into the Fed room. Get yourself a little wire transfer. No, don't. I'm pulling your leg. But anyway, Fed rooms are really important. It's like, it's like someone getting in your bank account and you transfer money. Transferring money all over the place goes through, these telephone wires and, the cables and all that stuff. It doesn't go through the plug, you get your 120 volts, your 200. No, it's like the cable, the cable, the internet connection. Guess what? That's where all the money goes through, all those pipes. So how is it safe? It's safe because on one end you have an encrypted access to an account, and the other end is the account itself. And that's, the safety feature is your password or passwords. How frequently do they change? How complicated are they? I have a little, I'll have to figure out where it is and show you someday soon. Make note of that, would you please? We have 3 people running this little studio with this simulcast between YouTube Live, and you can see right there, welcome to Jimmy Wilson's simulcast, broadcasted over several social networks: YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter Live. My handle is FAU for you. You can see it going right across the ticker tape right up there. YouTube Live, FAU for you. And X Live, Twitter Live. Yeah, it's all 3. The social networks are hot right now with Jimmy Wilson's conversation. And you hear a little background music in the background? That's Epidemic Sound Instrumental without copyright, which means they've given us permission to have it as our little background music without having to, communicate with the law firms back and forth. Yeah, it is copyright free. And it's nice. I have it the same. Think of it like, the background music when you're sitting in Sequela, a nice little coffee shop here in Boca Raton, or, your basic Denny's. We're sitting around having coffee. If you're lucky, you can get a word in sideways, because if you don't stop me, I'll keep on talking. The one thing I know how to do is talk to myself. I'll talk and talk. I can go on. I've gone on over 3 hours, and, just kept on yakking. And if I take a breath, you hear Epidemic in the background. And you know why we have to have Epidemic in the background, or something in the background? You can turn on the water, and hear the water flowing, because we're streaming. Okay, it's kind of like streaming in the rain. You got to hear those water drops coming down, sitting on the back porch, because you have to have those bits and the bytes flowing through the pipes. Yes, that's what's necessary when you stream. And if everything gets quiet and there are no bits and bytes going through the pipes, it'll drop you. It's like every once in a while you're watching stuff on Netflix and you're binge watching some, multi-series program, which Meryl and I have been known to do on a rainy Sunday afternoon. Yeah, you watch 9 episodes of something. After the 4th episode, Netflix or Amazon Prime, they'll come out with a message. Hey, are you still there? Hello? Are you guys sleeping? Are you watching these episodes? Did you go out to dinner and forgot to turn me off? Or are you watching? And you come up with this message. And then you can answer the message by saying, yep, I'm still watching. And I'm still watching, and remind me again. And because you want to do that, because if you take a nappy nap while you're watching, a streaming multi-series thing, every 5 seconds, at the end, then it comes up with the next episode. Well, if you're sleeping, it'll go through 3 episodes and you never saw it. You never saw them. So, you think you watched episode 10, right? But it's showing that you're up to episode 14. And so, once in a while, you got to go back and make sure you actually watch those episodes. Because it's going to show that you look through them, which means it played on your TV. Maybe your eyes weren't, opened properly. If you like to air travel, I'm just going streaming around here. You see that right there? That's the Apple AirTag, the magical little device that you can you can put on your, if you have a little harness around your little animal, or you have a something around the dog's a leash and a collar. And there are collars that you can get for cats and dogs that have a little opening a zipper thingy, a nylon zipper where you can slip one of these AirTags in there. And an AirTag is slightly bigger than a quarter, and not quite as big as a $50. Okay, how often you see a $50 anymore? We need to use the Susan B. Anthony dollar coins and get rid of paper dollars. Anyway, going back to the AirTag. You travel. You pull out a little piece of cellophane from underneath this little metallic touching on this polyethylene rim that goes all the way around, which holds this microelectronics and a little tiny lithium battery. When you pull out that little piece of cellophane, that permits the lithium ion 2032 cell, so it connects to the contacts in there and it starts it up. So then you go to your trusty Find Me app, and let's see if I can find me app. There it is. Find My. So you can find my brother, sister. I have all my Find My people. Yeah, Daniel's 9 miles away. He's at Lexus. Brennan is 4/10 of a mile away. He's still at his home. Bob Beatty, he's at his home. You can see you can almost see. Lee, he's home. Robin's home. Judy Dordell, she's home. But on the very bottom, gosh, you can't quite, you got to go, producers, go full screen on this. There you go. So then you can see, so on the very bottom there, you can see 2 people in blue holding each other's hands. And then you can go to devices. Now here's all my iPads and iPhones. And on the map, you can see I got 7 devices at this location. And then we got an iPad over here. It actually shows where the devices are. And that's basically iPads, iPhones, and Apple Watches. All right, yeah. Oh, and AirPods. Excuse me. And then you can see. So you got people, devices, and items. All right. So I've got one of these little things stuck. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. So here's a wallet with some of my credit cards in them. And my, whoops. We need to get me back in here so I can show my show and tell. So I have my Trump card. That's a nonpartisan Trump card. I've got a bank card. I got my insurance card and a couple of credit cards. And they're in this little compartment here that's RF safe, radio frequency safe. And I got my voter registration card in there. Gotta have that so you can vote. And then here's another credit card in that pocket. Anyway, there's a little pouchy wouchy thing here with a snap. Let's just snap this sucker out of here. It's not supposed to come in and out easily. It's just supposed to leave it in there. But see, there's that little doodad. And you can see the way I'm holding it with my fingers. And to give you an idea, it's got a reflective surface on there, and you can see a little Apple logo right on there, right? Yeah. And then on the back is nothing but this white plastic. I don't know, whatever that material is. It's hard, and you can rotate. You can rotate this metal thing rotates counterclockwise and clockwise, and one way opens it, and you can put in a new CR2032 cell. And if I can go to items, Jim's wallet. You see right there, Jim's wallet. No, we gotta go full screen again. There we go. There we go, Jim's wallet. See in the very top? It says it's with me. And let's see if I touch on it, what happens. It shows where it is on the map. And up in my apartment, I have like a little credit card as the insignia. And it says the battery is low. So I'm going to leave this out, and it's going to remind me to put in a fresh battery. Now, if you don't want to have it in the wallet anymore, you can edit the name. It says replace the battery. And then it's going to show, oh, look at that. If you push down on the back and twist, replace with a CR2032 battery. That's what I said. Let's see if it shows which way to rotate it. It does. So you rotate it counterclockwise, apparently, and it opens up. Yeah. I was trying to pry it up. That doesn't work. So I ruined one of these little buggers. It cost about, if you buy 4 at a time, it costs you about $24 a piece. And it's nice. It gives you, all you got to do is push the replace battery thing, and it tells you exactly what to do. Rotate it counterclockwise. And then you can put in the new 2032 battery. It costs a couple of hours. It lasts about 4 years. I have one of these. Let's see if it's on my list. Yeah, see, I have one in my car. And where is it? It's there's a little car right there. No, shouldn't be there. Anyway, that might be the car I turned in. I had secondary keys, so I got a car that's 2 miles away. I got a wallet that's with me, and I have everyday keys, and I have my secondary keys, the ones I don't carry around with me. So those are items. So every time you start a new AirTag. There's something that pops up on your device, on your iPad or your iPhone, or both, and you can name it. You can give it any kind of name you want. But the AirTag is really good. It's very good to put it in your luggage. Put it in your on the stuff that you carry in. But you can carry in some, it seems like some very decent sized stuff that ends up when you put it above your head, which I hate, because if there's ever a problem with the airplane, it seems like all the stuff that you store above you comes crashing down on top of you and breaks your head. So leaning over and putting your head between your legs, all right, so all the crap comes out from the top and breaks your back. You got 120 people, they're dead because it broke their back. So anyway, I don't like overhead. I wish they'd have blankets and pillows up there and maybe your jacket. But, these 45-pound luggages, and you can stack 3 of them, right? Because there's room for 3 pieces of luggage. Oh, God. That's like the kiss of death to me, to have 3 pieces of luggage over your head going up and down. I mean, so if you got 36 rows of seats, you've got tens of thousands of pounds of stuff that's sitting over everyone's head. Does anyone get the idea that that's dangerous? Anyway, where's my Tesla app? There it is. Let's see. Oh crap! Not that one. This one, the red. All right, let's see where that car is. Nice thing about it, it's parked. And where is it parked? I should be able to see where it is parked. Location, there it is. 801 Meadows Road, Maryland's Park, right in the front. She's at Dr. Ordonez's office. And she is still, it's a 9:30 appointment, so it's 10:08, so she's still there. I gave her all the stuff, I gave her a list of all the meds she's taken. I gave her her stent card. I gave her this and that. And she has a stent. Oh my God. You can't see it. It's buried. You ever hear of the Widowmaker? That's an artery in the back of the heart that kills marital partners. So it's commonly known in the heart industry, which I'm sorry I know anything about. Yeah, it's a Widowmaker. We went to one cardiac surgeon in town, unnamed cardiac specialist, and went downstairs and took some kind of a, I don't know where the equipment was, but gave her some kind of some kind of scan. It wasn't X-ray, it was CT scan, something like that, a computer scan of some sort. And I remember him saying, we go to each other's doctor's appointments. I particularly want Marilyn to go to my appointments because, I'm 103 years old and actually 80. I can't say crowding 80 anymore because then you don't know how the hell old I am. But when you're 80, it's 80 plus a month. And so I want her at my doctor's appointments because, when a doctor says something, you think about it. And while I'm thinking about it, he's moved on to 3 other topics. I'm still on topic 1. I'll get it. but I'm not as fast as everybody else, maybe. But I'll get there. I'll just get there maybe a little later. So I like to have someone else in the room with me taking notes, mentally or otherwise, so that while I'm contemplating topic 1 and someone moves on to topic 2, which I'm kind of like half here, and Marilyn's full hearing, So between the two of you, you probably get the visit figured out. So she's on her own today, which, I said no stress tests, no chemical stress tests, no nuclear stress. Forget that. I don't want them injecting anything in your arm for a stress test. I don't like stress tests, particularly if you're, over 70. Forget it. So what, are you going to stress my heart and then I have a heart attack in your office? That makes you feel better? No. I don't want anything where the heart starts to wobble. No, how stupid is that? Yeah, let's stress the heart out and see what happens. No, that's like revving the engine. Okay, I don't like my kids revving my engine while it's in the driveway. What are you waiting for? It to throw a rod? Throw a piston? Get jammed up, and then I need the car surgeon out here? No revving the engine. No way. Well, that's the same thing with the heart. No, you're not gonna rev that up to see what happens. Bullshit. Whoops, sorry. No. You use other means. Not chemically induced. That's even worse, because then the chemicals are speeding up your heart, and how you gonna slow that down if something adverse happens? Oh, don't worry. Bullshit. Yeah, I am gonna worry. This stupid nurse doesn't know what the hell to do about it. Yeah, she's gonna call for the doctor. Oh, well, that's nice. No stress testing. Don't do it. Don't let them do it. They can figure there are other means, and not chemically induced. That's worse. At least if you're stressing, I did it once. I won't do it again. I've done one of each, and the chemical is even worse. Because you can't stop it. It wears off. Yeah, great. It's yeah. So by 4 in the afternoon, you start slowing down a little bit. With an 11 o'clock appointment. No, thank you. Don't let them do anything to get your heart rate over 120 beats per minute. When you're in this over 65 category. You want to go down to the gym and you got your Apple Watch on and you can watch your heart rate and so forth and be on your treadmill. Just it's okay to get your heart beating faster than when you're sitting on a couch. But, be careful about revving up that heart too much, for sustained periods of time. That's when people fall on their face, grabbing their chest, saying, oh, let me just tell you something. Now, I didn't have an experience this, because when I had my little itty tiny bitty heart attack, I wasn't sure. All I knew is my Apple Watch went off and said, hey, jerkweed, your heart rate just went past 150. So, and what are you doing? Seems like you're sitting on a couch. Yes. Well, get your ass to the hospital. N-O-W. I pound on Marilyn's out on the patio talking to her sister on the phone in Fort Myers. And I said, Marilyn, we're going to the hospital. I got my little bag with me with all my wires and charging cables from my iPad and my iPhone and my Apple Watch. Oh, God. Yeah, that's how I checked out at like 6:05 p.m. Woo! I let Marilyn drive. She said, well, do you want to wait for the ambulance? I said, hell no. I'm having a cardiac event right now. I'm not waiting any 28 minutes for the EMT to come in here, and then they're good, but they're 20 minutes late. I'm having this event now. We'll be in the hospital, and they'll be knocking on my front door. So let's just get out of here. You drive. I'm not in any kind of pain, so don't stop for any red lights. Look around, and So we stopped at a red light. I said, Marilyn, you're killing me. Literally. Go through the goddamn red light. There's no one here, Everyone's watching the news. Oh, God. So we're at a left turn, coming off of somewhere and, trying to get into the hospital. She stopped at a red light. I said, Marilyn, go. So she creeps through the red. There's not a car, in sight. Just hurry up. Come on, please. And the policeman can follow you to the emergency. And if he's so insensitive, he's going to give you a ticket, then hell with it. So you got a $200 ticket to the governor's ball. Anyway, so I got to the hospital. And, of course, the Boca Hospital has a, very nice valet service for those that are having heart attacks. So we both go into the thing. They throw me in a wheelchair and wheel me into, the stall number 13. I remember the stall number. So I'm laying in the bed in 13. So they're trying to decide if they're going to admit me to the hospital. Because, they have the thing where they keep you down there in the emergency area. And unless you're, they don't want to admit you to the hospital unless you have cash or you have valid insurance. Because they, once they admit you, they have to then discharge you. So they don't want to go through that procedure unless you are duly sick, internally or externally. Well, they did a little blood test and said, oh, look at that. You got a couple of those little enzymes that says you might have had a significant cardiac event. I said, yeah, I think so. My Apple Watch says I'm having one as we speak. Anyway, so they admitted me, and they, went into the intensive care unit, and I was there for like 5 days, and then we had a debate on what they were going to do, which, I mean, you want to have, a little, oh gosh, when you got two teams of doctors deciding on two different, you got this fork in a road, and of course the patient, if he's, cognizant, is going to decide with your significant other, spouse, or somebody. So now you're going to decide, and it's the last, the most unqualified people on the face of the planet is the patient and the spouse of patient. You're both sitting there with your fingers and your toes crossed, and we're supposed to decide the course of action. And they're two separate courses of action. That's not what you want to have. You want to have everybody doing the same, speaking the same medicine. But oh no, we got to have two. I said, all right, here we go. Let's flip the coin. No, we used our compos mentis. And I said, you know what? I'm going along with what Dr. Ordonez says. Because he says, you're my mountain. And we're gonna fix you. But we're not going that way. We have to go this way. You're not going to... So Ordonez comes in the office. Like, whenever the hell it was before surgery. And he says... before even what the path of the surgery was. And he says, we have two courses of action, Jimmy, and the one course of action, I don't believe you're going to survive that course of action. I said, oh, really? Do we have a plan B? He says, yes, I have a plan B. I'm going to go visit with Dr. Brian Bethay in Delray. And I said, okay, let's while I'm still compos mentis, let's just pretend that Dr. Brian Bethay agrees with your prognosis on, going forward with a surgery according to, doctors like Ordonez who do these things where you slide a camera up into your groin and goes up through and around your chest cavity and ends up in your heart somewhere, and it's looking around inside your heart arteries. How about that? I mean, that gives me the willies just thinking about it. But they see where the blockages are, and I had 4, quadruple. It's bad enough to have 1, but one you could cure maybe with a stent, but maybe you want to have a bypass instead of the stent. I don't know. Maybe the blockage is just too serious, the blockage is too severe, or maybe your artery, can't tolerate the, they blow up, they expand the artery with like a balloon, and then they slip a stainless steel. The rest of this is guesswork. Like a spring, okay, and it looks like if you ever taken a ballpoint pen apart and you see this little spring, because you can click at the top of your pen. Well, there's a little spring in there. Well, that's about the size. It's about 2.5 millimeters in diameter. I just looked at Maryland's stent card, and it's 23 millimeters long. Well, that's about an inch. 25 millimeters, 25.4 millimeters per inch. So if you've got a 25 millimeter stent, that's how long it is. And then the other dimension is the diameter. Well, maybe your artery, they can't pump it up fat enough to slip that spring in there. They have all kinds of different dimensions, people have different size arteries and so forth. But part of the that exercise is if they expand the artery too much, the walls of the artery may not be able to handle the spring going in there, because then the theory is the artery then collapses back around the stent on the outside, and the stent keeps it from closing off all the way, or 75% blockage or whatever. So that's how that stent business works. Well, if the blockage is too severe, perhaps, or if the artery walls aren't healthy enough, then you go for the bypass, and they'll slice out a couple of arteries of similar gauge, out of your mammary glands up here, your muscles, underneath your breast tissue. There's a whole bunch of arteries up in there, which are the better ones to use, according to Dr. Bethay. He said you got 35 years out of those. If they take them out of your legs, you got about 10 or 11 years, and then you got to get retreads. Then you got to do the bypass again. Like, yeah, let's go with those 35,000 mile ones. Yeah, so he says, at your age, we had 35 years. He said, you're going to die of something, but it's not going to be the heart. Your heart is going to be in good shape when I get done with you. I said, okay, sign me up. So they took the arteries out of my top part of my chest, and they strip them out and put them on the tray table, and then they do the bypass business, which to me is magical. Don't look it up on how they do it. It'll scare you to death. That'll give you another heart attack. Yeah, I mean, that procedure, I would like to see it. I didn't like reading it. Yeah, it's a serious operation. It's about as serious as they get. Yeah. If you're gonna drop dead, There's a lot of them that go out toes first at a bypass surgery. It's a very drastic. They open you up like a Christmas turkey, number one. So you're going through all that business, So, if you don't die of the operation, you might die of the anesthesia. I mean, it's a very primitive method of anesthesia too. By the way, I don't particularly care for that. They chemically induce. They slow down your whole metabolic. They slows down your heart just enough to keep all your organs alive, and that's why you don't feel anything, because they're poisoning you almost to death, just halfway. Yeah, they call that anesthesia. Yeah, let's just kill them halfway. So if the anesthesiologist, coughs too much, you're dead. It's always a scary thing when you have to submit your body to such high degrees of stress, That's the stress test of all, bypass surgery. And when you got 4 of them, I think Marilyn's mother had 5 of them. 5 bypass. I don't even know how to say that one. Quintuplets? Yeah. So that was 6 years, 11 months ago. I was laying down there like a pulsating old fart. It couldn't fart. As I remember, it wasn't, from a patient standpoint, it wasn't that terrible. They get you out of bed right away, so, going to the bathroom is probably the biggest aggravation, when you get out of a bypass, any kind of serious surgery, and they get you up. Now, if you have the original part of your anesthesia still operating, you don't feel too much anyway, because the all the chemicals they got running through your system is still, deadening the areas. But after about day 2, when everything wears off, and then you're just on, you're taking Percocets or whatever kind of hydrocodone pills. So I always, they wanted to give me two maximum strength hydrocodone pills every 4 hours too. And I said, we'll do this. I said, let's try 2 every 6 hours. Let's not do every 4 hours. Let's stretch that time out to every 6 hours. And I said, you're only a buzz away. So after my 5th hour, if it's too severe a pain, so I really didn't, so I kept on expanding, and then I said, well, let's do 1 pill every 6 hours. So I kept on cutting back the recommended, because I don't believe in taking any more than you have to, and don't be too, pained. But, and that's the way, I've tried to do it with Marilyn when she has an operation and they send you home with a big bottle of these pills. I was just going through my medicine cabinet. I got half a bottle we never even used the last time she was in a surgery situation. I keep them around just for the hell of it. You never can tell. You fall down and break your knee, at least you'll have something that you could take until you can get, to the hospital or whatever. Anyway, so that's all I know about that. So Marilyn is bringing it all up because she's dealing with Dr. Odanis. So that's her cardiologist now, because he saved my. I don't think I'd be here if well, according to him, so here's the fun part, so then, we're having a chat. I had a meeting with Ordonez, let's say, a few months ago. And he says, oh, by the way, I didn't tell you this, but but the patient before you in the hospital, in the Boca Raton Hospital, they recommended the same kind of surgery to this lady, and she didn't make it. And then they wanted to do the same thing to you, and I wouldn't let them. Yeah. And they actually transported me out of there and took me to the Delray Medical Center, where I could, Brian Bethea has had operating privileges at the Boca Raton Regional Hospital. He's up in West Palm now, so I think you still have privileges. I don't know, too much about how, whether you have to get renewed every year or how that works. I think once you have privileges, you got them, I don't think they clock you on how many operations you do, necessarily. They keep track of it, but I don't think you got to have 2 a year to keep your privileges active. I don't know how that works, if at all. But so then, we were talking about whether Bethea would do it in this hospital or we'd do it up in his hospital. Because he's at that 7 years ago, he operated primarily out of the Delray Medical Center. And he, these doctors have their little team of people. He has 4 or 5. He's got his, his favorite anesthesiologist that's up in that area. And then, the other people that surround him while they're, you got all these hands inside your thoracic cavity, squeezing and pulsating and, doing the bypass work itself. So he says, so Ordonez says, it's always better to let the doctor operate, out of where he normally operates, because he's got his team of people. And if he does, surgery down at the Boca Hospital, they don't bring their teams with it. You have to use, the teams that are available in in this hospital. So that's always a little, different, because, the people are different, and they don't know exactly how you do things necessarily, and you don't know how they do things necessarily, and you got teams that do different tasks, particularly in what they would consider open heart surgery, which is really not opening the heart. It's just dealing with the arteries around the heart. Now, it could be, where they're changing heart valves and all that stuff. I didn't have that. Apparently, my valves are okay so far. And it's amazing the work they can do. So, anyway, I've survived that. Feel good. I don't have any abnormal, anyway, that I can notice. I do my blood pressure a little high on the blood pressure side. So, which I, it's up and down. When I went into my primary care doctor in January, he did the blood pressure cup and all this kind of stuff, and it was like 128 over 75. That's fantastic. I said, well, do it again. See if we can wake up. I was, it was 11 o'clock in the morning. I put the cuff on again. I said, well, do it again. So he did it again. Yeah, it's the same, similar reading, within 1 or 2. I said, well, all right, make note of it. But so, I do it. I have my little blood pressure Omicron or whatever they call it. It's all contained in a it balloons up. Does the pressure? Well, there's no hoses. It's all self-contained. Lithium battery. And, I'll do it after this little broadcast. After 2 cups of coffee, that sucker ought to read pretty loud. Anyway, so that's my heart stories. Let me put my wallet in my secret drawer that everyone would immediately go to when they come in here. Yeah, let's dig in his drawers and find out where all his little secret thing. I got a stack of expired cards that's, I don't know why I don't throw them away. I'm afraid of throwing them away. So, I mean, they're dead. So I just have a big stack of them in there. They must be 2 inches thick of cards over the last few years. I don't like to have too many of those things floating around. With all this cyber, this. Anyway, so I've been keeping an eye on the. Here's a new article about Apple Watch series. You can probably see it right there on the left side of your screen. Apple Watch Series 11, Ultra 3, and SE. What to expect from the next releases. So you can see a picture of the. I got my Apple Watch on right here. It saved my fanny because I'd have been sitting there. He said, "What happens with heart attack type patients? And not the ones." You ever have? Let me go back to this. You ever have a cramp in your, in your calf? When you're, you can pick up these cramps. I've had, like two or three of them. Over the last memory of the last 10 or 20 years. And when you have a cramp in your calf, when that thing tightens up, and you can feel it's like a knot in your calf, and it's usually because the blood is not circulating through the muscle properly, and it cramps up. It just seals up. You're not doing anything else with that calf muscle until you massage me big time. Well, now when you have one of those kind of heart attacks, I'm sure the pain is just excruciating. And of course, it has to do with your heart. So if it's not pumping and it's cramping, you're in a world of hurt in more ways than one. So if you can imagine having a cramp in your calf, and then just imagine that in your heart chest cavity, what kind of pain that. Now, I didn't have one of those. And I'm circling back to that story. He said, you had just the very beginning stages of a heart attack, and you would never feel this other than the fact that your pulse went up. And of course your watch made note of that, and which made you get to the hospital real quick. Most people, they don't do that. They just figure they're having a little palpitation, or they maybe they have a common cold associated with it, and they figure it's all part of the sniffles. Well, and then they go to sleep, or try to go to sleep, or go to bed, let's say 8 o'clock at night. Oh, honey, I think I'll turn in a little early. I don't feel so well tonight. I had a friend, that's what he did. He turned in early, and guess what? They turned him over in his grave. Because what happened is you go to sleep, and you're having a heart attack for the next 9 hours. And it is getting worse and worse and worse, and you end up, expiring, perhaps. So you say, well, honey, I wake up and I don't really feel good. So you can have a heart attack and not fall over, in pain. And if you don't see to it right away, your heart muscle is getting more and more destroyed, because that's what happens. And there may not be enough heart tissue left over, so you can have any kind of a normal life if you live through it. So when your heart rate goes up like that, and you're sitting on the couch watching the news, like I was, get your ass to the emergency. the best case scenario there is they say, well, they pat you on the back and say, well, it was good that you got in here right away, but you'll be fine. And they give you some meds and send you home. The best case scenario is they figure out what your problem is and they start working on it right away, which is what they did with me. Of course, they put me in suspended animation. They kept me on that heparin drip and that nitroglycerin for, like 5 days until they figured out how they were going to fix my problem. And then, of course, we had a little debate. So then they put me in an ambulance on the way up to the Delray Medical Center. And if the heart attack didn't get you, the ride in the ambulance was like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. I said, oh my, now I know why they got these 2-inch straps of Velcro and they strap you into the gurney. And that thing is swinging back and forth and forth and back. And oh my God, jeez. I said, hey, will you slow down up there? Oh shit. Oops, pardon me. That was so they got a guy riding with me in the back, and of course they got the driver up front. And I said, don't you have some wheel locks or something? I'm getting slammed around in here, If I don't die from the hospital, from the ambulance ride, I may be okay. If you can get me to Delray. Can you get me to Delray? Alive, please? I swear to God, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in the ambulance ride between hospitals. Holy crap. Jeez. Mine, I think I'll have my wife bring me up there. Oh, God. That was funny. Anyway, so I survived all that crap. But that was the ambulance ride. Was and of course the ambulance is like, rent an ambulance. It's like everyone's got, these contract service providers. So it's not actually a hospital ambulance. It's somebody else's goddamn ambulance. And, it says ambulance on it. And it's got the right color and all that stuff and flashing lights. Geez. I don't know where these guys got the ambulance driving skills from. Or it was the vehicle itself. It's just this big box, on a truck body. And, oh gosh. Yeah, I would, I could do some redesign on the ambulance thing. I could help them figure out how to make that work. And then, of course, you ever watch these medical shows, since we're on the topic, and they wheel these people in on the gurney with the wheels on it, right? And they're riding you through the emergency area, and you get, four sets of nurses and doctors on either side of the stretcher thing that is somehow strapped onto the gurney, and then they unstrap it. So now you're on this, you're open, and they say, okay, ready, 1, 2, 3, and then they slap you down. So, it seems like they could figure out over all this time how to get you from this rolling Durban Worshy thing that you got out of the hospital in the ambulance, and figured out how to slide you into the bed in a little more, less chaotic method other than, okay, lift them up and and then they just plop you down on the surgery bed or whatever. God, jeez, seems like there got to be a better way of doing that too. And every time I watch these doctor shows, I see them do that. There's this new show Marilyn had me start watching, Pulse. And boy, you're in the emergency room with Pulse. My God. If anything would talk you out of being a medical student and it seems like when you go into residency, the first place they put you is in the emergency. You go from medical school to the emergency room. And that is one hell of a duty. You got 18 hours of emergency room. By the time you go through 3 days of that, you'll be ready to, say, hey, anybody out there want to give me a job offer so you can get me the hell out of this emergency room business? You know, oh boy. Okay. So we're going to figure out what's going to happen with the new Apple Watch as I'm jiggling this thing. The Model 10, and I'm speed reading this. And of course, my mother taught me how to do that. So when you speed read, you're not supposed to slide yourself along and kind of look at every word. What you're supposed to do is look on the left part of the sentence and the right part of the sentence. And you're supposed to just like climb down the stairs, and you keep going like that with your eye. And if you really get good at it, and the column width is not too wide, you just put your eye right in the middle of that sentence, and you let your peripheral pick up the words, and you just go straight down the middle of the page, and you just take it all in without having to, pick up word by word. And you can with a lot of practice, you can do that and get a lot of information in your little brain a lot quicker than trying to read every single word going across and get the pronunciations. Just step your way down left to right, without moving your eye too much. And then, as time goes on, that peripheral, you can bring that together a little closer. So you're even, and then you get to the point where you just have your one finger, if you want to have a finger, and you just go down the whole middle of the page and take it all in.
I found this on the web.
Whoops. Siri, stop. My computer's arguing with me. And then you got this, I have to whisper it, Alexa. We got all those little Alexa things all over the place. So if you say, if you just use the word, or if the TV uses the word, then they all start lighting up and answering, and then the TV is arguing with the Alexa speakers in the house. Oh my God. It was we had something going on, a couple of nights ago, and all these boxes are talking to each other, and they're talking to the TV. I never said a word. It's really amazing what times we live in here. Okay, Apple Watch Ultra 3. Yeah, I think an Ultra 3, this guy right here. The one thing I liked, that I had Ultra, and then I got the, just a regular big watch face. I like this one better because the display, you have more ways of getting more information on those little dial things, as you can see. You can see it right there in the middle of your. I did a lot of touching on this. There we go. Yeah, that right there is a marvelous thing. And what the marvelous thing about these watches is you're taking off, and I'm going to bring this up over to the camera. You see all those little doodads on the back of the watch? Now that's what gets married to the top of your wrist. Right up here. Assuming you wear your watch with the face on the back of your wrist like that. So it's constantly sitting right there. And this, I have to put my magic word in there. And it keeps track of your pulse, your activity, or this and that. And, it's really... here's a watch face. You see that green bar? Yeah, you can see it's green now. That is telling me that I've got 261 miles of range in my Tesla that Marilyn's driving. Yeah, I can see right on my watch face how many miles. Let's check it. Isn't that nice to check it? So it's going to go to the Tesla app on my trusty dusty iPad here. And I've got she's still, and this is current. See that red? That's where she's parked, in that parking lot. The Tesla has its own cell system in the car. Okay? And if you wanted to update the traffic and have all the, it costs you $10 a month for the extended or the super duper connectivity so that you can, actually share in all this technology that the Tesla car has. So my watch says 250 miles of range, and this says 249. So we're within a mile, within a mile or so of the range. So it's pretty good. So this is actually the app. It shows a red car. It's actually black. I just have it. I changed the color of the car, which there's a way of doing that. Just because a black car on the black background, you can barely see the car in just the graphical presentation. So, and there was a time we were going to get the red car, but we didn't get a red one. We got a black one. If we get another one, it's going to be red. They have a real deep maroon red, kind of crimson tide kind of color looking. It's really it's nice. They charge you an extra $1,000 for the red color, but what the hell, you gotta live with it for a while, so you might as well make it the way you want it. Okay, so we went through AirTag. We went through the mileage on my watch. Don't have heart attacks. That's an important thing. If you're looking for something to do, this is out of nowhere. You see up in the very top there, 416-1100.com. 416-1100.com is our website where we have all our pictures. See, it says health and wellness creates great images, which is true. And I have it, my headline photo, which I wrote the HTML code on this little baby, I'm happy to say, and I don't want to have to do it again. Matter of fact, it's one thing when you do it the first time, second time, like 10 years ago, and then I'm lucky if I can go back and edit the code. Like every year I have to change. I'll go to the very bottom of this thing. You can see where it says copyright. To edit the code to change that to 2025. There was one year where I could barely figure out how to do it. I've done it enough times now where I can do it. And I wrote the code to begin with. See, here's a little private bio I have on the bottom there. Principal, licensed real estate broker. That sounds very nice, right? Got my license number on there. You have to do that. Look at this. Now this is a number that is very exciting to me. There have been 26,422,000 visitors to this website from all over the planet. That's why I have a little circulating planet on there, Earth. Because it's from 150 different countries. Can you imagine? Now if you think, you see where it says 688? Now if I restart this page, which means I touch up here and hit this recycle button. Alright? Now I went back to the front page. I'll bring you through this real quick. Let's shrink it down. Remember it was 688? Now it says 689. So it counts every time you come to this site. There's my little logo. How about that? We made that about 40 years ago. So since 1990. So that's a lot of years. 26 million visitors. That's pretty crazy. And it's never been advertised. Never paid 10 cents telling anybody where this is, other than I'm telling you right now. So go here and just browse around. You can download the images, no charge. And in theory, you're not allowed to resell them because they're my images. And this one I'm quite proud of, actually. This right here, someone told me it's very difficult to actually get the picture of those mallets wrapping around each other, and they make a special clicking noise, and there's a name for that. And if someone would be so kind as to text me what that's called. Because a photographer that was sitting next to me said, boy, I wish I could get that picture, and I actually got it. And I didn't know I got it because I moved on to like 9 other pictures, but there's Marilyn with Jay Leno. Look at that. That's pretty cool. I stopped him in the middle of the concourse of this Concours d'Elegance. They had a car show at the Boca Raton Aviation Hangar Party. This was in 2020. You can see right here, the Concours d'Elegance Hangar Party, which was at the Boca Raton Airport hangar. And you can see the airplanes. And this is there's the car show, Boys and Girls Club. Yeah. So this is in a big hangar. They got all the planes out of there, and they opened up, put a big red carpet down the middle, and they got all the spaghetti cars lined up, the Lamborghinis and the, I call them spaghetti cars. Yeah, that's what we used to call it when our kids were real small. They couldn't quite pronounce the words. I said, just call them spaghetti cars. Yes, sir. So now these pictures, if I touch on that picture with Marilyn and Jay Leno, that's like a button. So if you press that button, now it's going to take you to, there you go. That's where it is in the gallery of pictures where there's Alfa Romeo. See, that's another one of those spaghetti cars. And they got all kinds of pictures of the Rolls Royces and the things, and Marilyn's and her friends, and some people we don't know that just happen to be attractive. The feathers and the hanging from her scarf or wherever those feathers are suspended from is actually what got me to this picture. But it's nice. Oh, she's got some little like bandana thing around her forehead. Yeah. Anyway, so it's just pretty wealthy people that are floating around there's Jimmy and Marilyn. There's Jay Leno, Jimmy and Marilyn. And there's the money shot when you got the Boca Hotel in the background, because then you know exactly where it was taken. And there's the rim of the hat right there. You can see all the different years that we were at this event. And the current year is hanging from my shirt thingy there. Now this is after we walked around there for a while. Marilyn still looks okay. I look a little ragged. You walk around out there at 88 degree temperature carrying around a 5-pound camera with a big lens on it. After about 2 hours of that, I'm ready for her. So the hangar party is like Friday night. And then Sunday, starting at 10 a.m., they start. So this is the hangar party. It's all in the shade and things. So there was two people that got out of this jet. And I said, hey, you want me to take a picture of you guys? So they own this jet, or flew at least at whatever. The captain, he's turned around backwards doing something else. But they got out of this 2, 4, 6. It holds 14 people. But there were only 2 of them that got out of there. And see, there's a little stanchion where you can walk through the... So they got out of this jet, and I said, why don't you get back there and let me take a picture of you? I'll give you my card, and you can go find this on the website. And they ordered like $200 worth of pictures, which I told them what I'm telling you. You can download the picture and not do anything, and take it to your own printer. We have the best printers. It's actually submitted out to bid. The host is SmugMug, and every couple of years they submit sample pictures, images, like digital files, for them to test print, and then they send them back to California, and they decide with a committee of people on whose whose prints were best. And that's the printing company that they use. So if you were to order prints off this site, which we, keep it, we've never taken a nickel out of here. Whatever money is raised is used to just perpetuate the site. Because it costs me like $400 a year to store literally 400,000 pictures. Yeah, it's more than that now. I've been saying 400,000 pictures for a long time. It's probably 500,000 now. But they're there forever, as long as you keep paying the $400. And they store them in 3 different locations. So if a building burns down, they got 2 other sites with all the... Because, you have all these photographers that have all their pictures up there, and they've got millions of clients, this SmugMug host. And that's really amazing. And you can, write the HTML code to create the site, or they'll do it for you, and they'll do it for a fee. Here's some exotic old motorcycles, in case you haven't noticed. So this is all because I hit the Jay Leno picture. See? But all these other ones, now see, unique events, I'll touch that. Now this is the car show part. This is that Sunday, you see? And then this is the different years. look at, I love this one. This is 2018. Where's that? I mean, this is a shot here. We sat on the side of one of these little mountains. Not a mountain, a hilly thing. There we go. Let's touch on that one. You just touch the picture and you get a nice full screen. Look at that. We're sitting on this. See, it slopes down, and then they got all the cars in this little sloped area. But look at it. You talk about a money shot. A shot that really you could sell to a magazine or something. Whoops. It's this one right here. Look at that. You got thousands of people. You got the hotel in the background, and you got these people we're sitting in the shade, we just sat there for hours, people watching and, order, run down there and get some food and then bring it back and sit down and eat your hot dogs and drink whatever the hell we were drinking. Let's see, the hotel just springs out of the ground. Looks like it grew right out of the bushes. So I took a bunch of those pictures. And then when you get on, then they have the cars come up through the middle. Now and you get the ribbons. You can see there's a ribbon on that one. And they have their hoods opened up and the people walk around. Marilyn took a picture of me carrying the camera. There's the press credentials hanging around my neck with the greeny thing. They put a thing on your arm because we're press. We got our press passes. The antique car, those old Woodies. So now some of these shots are terrible, but I try to kill, not publish on this site, when they're too terrible. This lady's scratching her head. That one, normally I get rid of that one. Avante car. But, a lot of these cars, they get trucked here from all over the country. They don't get driven down here. They're put in literally like a moving van. And they drive the cars into a moving van. They put 2 or 3 of them in a van. And they drive them down from Chicago and, wherever. Look at this. Now, they may drive the vehicle in the show, but you can see those tires this car did not get driven from Chicago. That was put on a closed-in van, not even an open-ended truck. Yep. So you can see these old antique cars. It's Jay Leno. He wants this one. He was after this guy big time. He wanted this, and he knows antique cars. He has a garage he's got a show. Jay Leno has a show on. I'm using the back button there, so we can get back to one more back button. See, this is all the years of these unique events. I think I call this unique events or something. Yeah, see, unique events. There we go. FAU hired me to take pictures of the College of Education. Had a 2 or 3 day event. Look at that young lady. Now she looks like a 3rd grade teacher, if you ever saw one, with a little. I kind of shifted myself around, so I got that little white bowl of apples sitting on the table. That's like what a shot that is. That is one of my favorite pictures right there. It's a spectacular young lady. And there's one in the background, it's like that focus with the finger up under the nose, like she's concentrating. There was some guy, a speaker, talking about something important, apparently. Literacy and Teaching Conference. God almighty. That was 21 years ago? Holy crap. Whew. That seems like last year. Next steps for university partners. FAU.edu. There was a picture of a banner. That's the Dean of the College of Education. He had a red apple and a green apple on his podium while he's talking. There's people taking notes. Yeah, you take pictures of, you never know. The College of Education, they use these shots in all kinds of things. There's the president of the university at the time. Some guy there. There you go. That's the dean again. I don't know who he is. She's like a commissioner of some kind. Let's see, they're all paying attention to the speaker. I'm sneaking around trying to get pictures. This guy's looking at his, the agenda for the event. I think we can sneak in over his shoulder, see what he's looking at. There's the luncheon. Look at the thing of apples. Yeah, there's some more note-taking. Yeah, pen, pencil. This is a very serious conference they had. They had a lot of... There's the food preparing people. I went back there and spent a little time taking pictures of what they do. It's hard to get a good picture of people slopping around with a lot of food. It's amazing how nicely they prepare the plates. That's an art in itself. Here's a bunch of mashed potatoes or whatever coming out from another part of the kitchen. There you go. This lady's been teaching a while, and she's got a diamond studded reed on her shoulder pad thing, chest thing. Yeah, wow. This guy's all exercised about what he's talking about. Yeah, teaching is I taught high school math for a couple of years. I tell you what, to be good at it, you got to perform. Now this is at the university private party in the president's house. So I got up on the staircase and took our picture looking down. There's the president and his wife, and surrounded by a whole bunch of those education people that got invited to their house for a little cocktail party. There's some food. I didn't get many pictures of the food. This lady's. Oh, it's nice to get. Anyway, so that if you got nothing to do on a rainy afternoon, you can come here and look at all these shots. Here's. Yep, there's Howard Schnellenberger. He's giving a speech about something. FAU Stadium ribbon cutting. How about that? 2011. This is the actual FAU ribbon cutting of the stadium. named after Schnellenberger. There's the athletic director at the time. You see, there you go. There's the ribbon cutting. You got a lot of different people trying to cut the ribbon. They got the scissors, but did I get a picture of the actual cut? Oh, there we go. There's the mayor. She looks like she's getting ready to, and the county commission, or the city commission, city council, I guess. You know, all the public people like to get in these shots. Yeah. So this is the ribbon cutting of the FAU Stadium. Yeah. That's the president of the university. He's floating around, shaking hands with people. He used to be the vice. Let's see. He was the lieutenant governor of the state of Florida. That guy right in the middle there. Yeah. And he became the president of FAU. And now he's like on the Regents board up in Tallahassee, you know, governing in some form or fashion all the state universities. So he got pushed right up there from FAU to all of them. Not all by himself, you know, everything's a committee. Let's see, that was 688. Now it's 695. So you got other people on the site with us that are floating around. So there's another shot I liked. You know, when you take these pictures, I try to put the good ones up front of each gallery. So, you know, this is the front page. 416-1100.com. Now, underneath each one of these buttons is a whole bunch of maybe other galleries. For example, FAU Sports over here. Right there, FAU Sports. If I touch that, touch screen on iPad. Now what do I got? I got FAU football, because that's FAU Sports. You can see it right up there. Oh gosh, it's touchscreen. Don't touch unless you mean to touch. I gotta go back because I want to take you through the guided tour properly here. So there's FAU Sports. You don't have to expand. I'm just doing that so you can see it better. So FAU Sports, if I touch on that, now you'll see up on the top it says FAU Sports. Don't touch it. And then underneath each of these pictures is another whole set of, like if you go to the first one, it says FAU Football. If I touch that, we're going down a little family tree of all kinds of other. Now these are all, you know, each one of these is a game. See, FAU Football win 28-13 versus Middle Tennessee, 2019, you know, October 12th, FAU Stadium. There's 2019, there's the coach. He was very dramatic on the sidelines, as you can see, with his open arms. Now, if you touch that, that's going to actually take you to this, you know, this is FAU Football versus Wagner. September 21, 6 p.m. And then then we have the actual pictures. You know, had press passes, so I get right down here at the coin toss. And there's actually a little video here, because you see the little arrow in the middle. Let's touch that. There you go. Here's the coin toss. And there's the coin, and he calls it. They called heads, he called tails. I'm right up there looking right over his shoulder. And then I'm going to come around in here because they're going to get on the right side of the stage. They're going to shake hands, and then they're going to run off the field and get ready to go clunk heads. And how cool is that, huh? So this is all the pictures we took. Marilyn and I running around taking pictures. She's on one end of the field, I'm on the other. You know, certain events here, like here, this picture. There we go. What is that? $25,000 donation. Looks like AT&T is written on there. There you go. So, you know, that goes in the newspaper. Lots of newspapers. Here's another some kind of a $10,000 gift card from Michael's. Someone won that on a lottery drawing of some kind. There's the coach. He's waving his arms around. So we took. There's a cat. He's looking at all our camera stuff. We're getting ready to go take pictures. She's sitting up there on the dining room table. We're getting our camera gear set up. Yeah. So every one of these right here is a different. Let's go down to the bottom. So you can see that. Well, this is a nice shot of here where they came down from the sky. This is 2016. You keep on going down. 2015. They're in order. As you get to the bottom, it's early on, and we'll see right after 9/11. We're getting closer. Right here. See, 1201, 2001. They all came with, this is, so we have 9/11/01. This is 22. Gosh. All right, I'm gonna have to say goodbye.